Hello, welcome everyone, and it's my big pleasure to open this session, Maritime Spatial Plan Finland 2030. This session is one of the workshops we run in this international exchange on communicating MSP, and my name is Patricia, and at the European MSP platform, I'm the MSP focal point for the North Sea Basin, and it's my pleasure to be facilitator of the exchange of this workshop. As you know, and as we've heard earlier today, in the European Union, we have the directive on establishing a framework for maritime spatial planning. The MSP directive was adopted in 2014, and in compliance with it, all EU coastal member states transposed the MSP directive into national legislation and produced national MSP plans for the identification of the spatial and temporal distribution of relevant maritime activities to ensure efficient, safe, and sustainable activities at sea across borders and sectors. And the process of MSP development by member states is currently ongoing in all sea bases in Europe, and the directive requires a review of the plan every 10 years at least. For some member states, it's not the first plan. They had already some forms of MSP or coastal planning, like it was the case in France, Germany, or the Netherlands. But it's for the first time that it is organized in such a way that this legislative act regulates the process in a coordinated way in Europe and increases cross-border cooperation between the member states, and is a driver of knowledge sharing between different authorities, countries, sea basins, and regions stakeholders. We run this workshop today when this MSP process in Europe is ongoing, when by this point in time, most of the EU countries have their MSP plans ready. And they've been intensively working on these experiences. In that context, in this workshop today, we are addressing a topic of maritime spatial planning in Finland 2030. We will look in detail into this topic of interest to you, where plenty of Finnish experiences will be shared with you and discussed with you. We will have a 10-minute, up to 50 minutes presentation by our guest, Pohja Mykra, from the Regional Council of Southwest Finland, that will be followed by a question and answer Q&A session, providing an opportunity for all of you to engage in a discussion. Therefore, please do not hesitate to ask a question, to comment, to share your views during today's workshop. You saw also in the earlier session that it was rather informal, and we very much would like to engage you in this discussion and to hear your voice, and please treat it as a forum. At the outset, allow me to remind everyone how participation is envisaged. First, we kindly ask you keep your microphones muted and your videos off for the time of the presentation, unless later in the Q&A session you will be making an intervention. We also ask you to please indicate that you have a question or comment in a chat box, which can be accessed from the taskbar. During Q&A session, I will ask you to indicate by raising your hand or just indicate in the chat box you wish to take the floor. And I will give the floor to those indicating they wish based on the first come, first served basis. And please also be aware that we are recording this session for the internal purposes. And now, I am pleased to invite our presenter, Pohja Mykra from the Regional Council of Southwest Finland, to give us an overview of the Finland's Maritime Spatial Plan 2030 with a focus on the achievements and challenges in the process of MSP development in Finland. Mari is a coordinator of the Finnish Maritime Spatial Planning Cooperation. She's an ecologist specializing in biodiversity research with a PhD in environmental science, and she has 20 years of experience in natural resource conflicts, adaptive management, and collaborative governance. Before joining MSP, she has been a senior researcher at the Ruralia Institute and at the Institute for Sustainability Science, University of Helsinki in Finland. Mari, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Patricia. Maybe I'll just show my head here, so my face is so you can see who's speaking. Thank you. I saw that we have a nice, quite small group here online at the moment, so I think it's a good possibility for us to keep this very informal. So I don't mind if you interrupt me while speaking. We know that we don't do that online nowadays, but still, there's also room for that, if it's okay for Patricia, of course. But maybe I shut the camera off during my presentation and open it afterwards. So Maybe that is the wise thing to do. You can put the next slide, please. I was asked to give a presentation about the actual kind of maritime spatial plan, the plan itself in Finland. But my presentation will be more about the collaboration process, because that is what it was. It was a collaboration process from the very start until we have had our final plan. And it's good to say, kind of first thing is that we have our first MSP in force at the moment. It was approved by the assemblies of the coastal regional councils in November and December last year. In Finland, it requires political decision making to approve and adopt the plan. And in Finland, actually, these are local level politicians that have approved our plan. And important to start explaining that in Finland, we do not have a national approach to MSP, but it's a regional one. As you can see the map on the right side, we have altogether 8 coastal regional councils that are responsible of 3 planning areas. And the 3 planning areas, I can read them to you, but it's the Northern Bothnian Sea, Quark, and Bothnian Bay. And then when we come down, there is Archipelago Sea and Southern Bothnian Sea. And then we have Gulf of Finland. And of course, we have Åland Islands, but they are responsible of drafting their own plans. So my presentation will deal only the mainland Finland and these 3 planning areas. And when we have a regional approach, and we have these local level politicians, this kind of forms, it gives us a framework, sets some kind of requirements for our planning process, how to plan, how to do it in a collaboration, how to be sure that we have cross-border planning between the regional councils and the coherence of these 3 plans. When you go and see our Maritime Spatial Plan 2030, you can see only one plan, and it is due to the very intensive collaboration process between these regional councils. So what we did was that we set up a coordination group, and regional councils hired one coordinator to do this cooperation work. And a coordinator is responsible for cooperation, whether it is between planners and regional councils, but also between stakeholders and experts and MSP related projects and all this kind of stuff. And this coordination group consists of maritime spatial planners from each regional council. That means a total of 16 maritime spatial planners in Finland. And then we have few GIS experts from the regional councils. And then we have 2 civil servants from the Ministry of Environment. And actually we have Tina online today from the ministry, and she's the responsible author in international cooperation. And also the coordinator is the member of this coordination group. And in addition to this group, we have a group of professional PR persons from each regional council and the ministry. And this group is led by the coordinator. So a lot of expertise in coordination group, in smaller groups, and we use consultants throughout the process, throughout the planning process, to facilitate the meetings with stakeholders and to gather and analyze data. And in Finland, we have several. In our process, we have had several MSP-related projects that have supported our planning process. And then coordinator is also actively involved in any projects we have. And then we form the kind of steering groups for each project among the planners. So good connections to researchers and research projects that we have in Finland. We have an established national level MSP cooperation group, but in addition to this, we have this kind of MSP cooperation network that is open to anyone interested in joining with us, where we have some 400 participants from very local level to the ministries, agencies, and so on. And what is important considering our MS process is that whatever happened from the start, we worked in a collaboration with stakeholders, with the maritime stakeholders. We kind of built the structure and the whole elements of the Finnish MSP together with the stakeholders. even the plan map, when we drafted the plan map, it was brought to the stakeholder tables, and we asked them to reflect on whether how they see the plan. Is it the correct? Can we use this? So collaboration throughout the whole process. Next slide, please. I wanted to show you these two infograms because for some reason in Finland we decided the MSP task is something that regional councils should do. So what is the reason for that? Well, long before the MSP, we have had legally binding planning hierarchy and land use plans that cover territorial seas. As you can see on the left-hand side, the MSP is strategic by nature in Finland. It is a general level plan, and it is not legally binding, and it covers territorial seas and the EEZ. And the same planners that are responsible for drafting the MSP in the regional councils are also responsible for drafting regional land use plans that cover territorial seas. So more detailed plans, and then we go to the local master plan level that is drafted by the municipalities. So the MSP is strategic, so its effects can only be indirect. Whereas the land use plans are legally binding, and licensing system has to take note on these land use plans. Well, the MSP as well as land use plans include impact assessments, consideration of land-sea interactions, etc. So same mechanisms are in our MSP and in land use planning. So what is the added value of MSP? Well, the MSP in Finland looks at the future. It's our future image for the use of our marine area. And it is kind of not tied to the nowadays conditions, but it gives a kind of overall strategic understanding for the future. What is our shared future image for all the maritime sectors? What is our target? Where are the most potential places for future actions? And this strategic plan, the MSP, the MS plan, it kind of serves as a strong information base for planners in all levels, but also for maritime sectors and authorities. Next slide, please. Well, here's a graph about our so to say collaboration process or cooperative process. Because in Finland, we put a lot of effort in engaging stakeholders into the planning process. We had national level, regional level, local level, maritime stakeholders, experts, authorities, but also wider public. And in this graph, you can see the timeline and all the different planning packages we had during the process. And each package contained a lot of workshops, expert interviews, and data analysis. Well, just to mention something, in the very first steps in the process, we had a project called Common Approach, so to say, Common Approach, where we carried out the stakeholder analysis. And then together with these stakeholders, we defined the format of MSP process in Finland, and we have actually followed those steps since. We did it as they said it should be done. And in 2018, we prepared both internal and external interaction plan, and established this MSP cooperation network open to anyone interested that I mentioned in the previous slides. We have some 400 participants, and all these participants receive our MSP newsletter and an invitation to any event we organize. And then, of course, we use social media to reach the wider public. In 2019-20, we had a very intense planning phase with the scenario work, vision work, and thematic meetings. I will explain that in more detail next slides. But in fact, yeah, that's good. Then move to the next slide. Yes. As mentioned, we had very intensive scenario phase with some 350 maritime stakeholders, where we pondered future paths for key change factors. We didn't try to forecast the future, but just to be open-minded about the possible paths and outcomes when it comes to marine environment and maritime sectors. And this was really important phase for our stakeholders, because they didn't stick to their point of view, or they didn't try to enhance their own interests, but just to ponder together what might happen in the future and actually what it means to their sector, also spatially. And this work formed very good cross-sectoral understanding of the sector's needs. And planning-wise, this provided important information. We prepared some general and sector-specific contingency plans, what we have to take into account anyway, whatever happens in the future. And then we move towards the vision phase with even more participants. And all these sectors, maritime sectors participated in defining the shared vision for 2050 and sector-specific visions for 2030 and roadmaps to achieve the vision. Next slide, please. Well, our maritime spatial plan is all digital and only in a digital form. Here's a screenshot of the front page of our plan that is in Finnish, in Swedish, and in English. It consists of 5 main parts that you can see on the right-hand side picture. Because we chose this digital form, it provided us also a platform for discussion and public hearing and consultation. There is, of course, room for all that information that is needed to have a proper plan, and it's easy to carry out the cross-reference between the content. We have an interactive map and see it very important to have a very appealing map, easy to use map. We can, whoever access the map can have the input and output data together and have a detailed information and description about the map markings. And this interactive map, it also meets the EMODNet standards in the EU level and base map standards in the Baltic Sea level. Well, we put special attention to info wider public. We have digital story maps with a lot of web maps, photographs, videos that summarize the current state. And then we built Vision 2030 videos of our maritime sectors. And we are at the moment building our MSP magazine. That might be the first product that will be also printed, actually. And then we have a separate page for the MSP process, whatever happens, what is news and so on. Next slide, please. I try to be fast because I know I don't have many minutes left, but I was asked whether our collaborative process was a success, or the pros and cons. In a way, it was a success. We built bridges, we had collaboration with stakeholders, we collide stakeholders to create common understanding, we shared knowledge, we bridged social capital, and I think that we all understand each other's needs better now after the process. And we understand the human-human and the human-nature interactions better. We have a common will for the future, how we will see our sea areas in the future, 2030 and 2050. And this collaboration provided planners very practical, very hands-on way, bottom-up approach of adopting the ecosystem-based management to planning and taking the land sea interactions into account also. And also, we didn't have any choice. We couldn't do it in another way. As the planning mandate is in a regional level, it also requires actions and improvements in a regional and in a local level. And we also see that the collaboration is key to conflict mitigation, kind of conflict prevention, so that we won't be in the situation that we have to start conflict management after the implementation of the plan. And it's important for us that we treat our maritime sectors equally. So that we value the different societal and community values. It's not all about economics. And also, no, I won't read them out loud here because I will show them on next slides why it wasn't a success. Next slide, please. Just shortly about the special characteristics of the Finnish MSP. It's a challenge, very long coastline. We have some 46,000 kilometers long shoreline with actually more than 6,000 covers the mainland coastline, 80,000 islands, 2.5% of the Finnish population live in the sea area. We have some 63,000 holiday homes at this coastal area. It's vital to support lively archipelago areas. We have shallow shoreline, we have brackish waters, and land uplift is up to 1 centimeter per year. And these shallow areas have a rich biological diversity, and we have special responsibility of species in low salinity marine areas. MSP-wise, for example, the decrease in the depth of the sea causes a need for the dredging of ports, as well as shipping and boating routes. Then we have a long icy period during the winter time. It has an effect on recreational activities, tourism, seafaring, offshore wind farming, etc. We acknowledge that in addition to underwater cultural heritage, above the surface of water, we have a rich maritime cultural heritage in the islands and in coastline. And this includes also traditional practices such as vanishing seal hunting that we need to notice. And then in addition to all this, we have established everyman rights, that is right to sail, roam, fish basically anywhere regardless of the landowner. And these rights have to be considered when planning. So what we did to overcome this challenge is that we have considered these special features so that we have included the zoning into our plan and planning. The picture on the right with the three zones. And we highlight in our planning and plan that the activities, values, and interactions vary between the zones and has to be taken into account when planning in more detailed planning. So a lot of challenges to overcome and to bring them to the fore. Next slide, please. Then although we had a vast collaboration process, not all maritime sectors were satisfied with the final plan. For example, we couldn't support the sustainable growth of fishing. If you look at the impact assessment, the picture on the right-hand side, it's easy to actually interpret the picture. It means that the inner circle is so that the situation without the maritime spatial plan, and the outer circle is the situation with the maritime spatial plan. And for some reason, fishing is the only one that we are not able to support. And why is so? So this is a new group for stakeholders. They were really easy to reach and engage. But it was a challenge for our planners to understand how to support the well-being, because especially the small-scale coastal fishermen, they see the sea area as their backyard. So for them, the operating environment is something that we don't have a mandate to, because for them it's very essential to take note on harmful species, but we can't manage seal populations or great cormorant populations. So what we can do is to understand and bring the issue to the fore, to the public discussion, and make them kind of visible in the society at large. So we had a case study in 2019 and 2020 before the most intense collaboration phase and the actual planning process started. We had this scenario and vision phase. We engaged local fishers in Satakunta region. And we measured the motivation trust levels and found out that they considered themselves as very essential part of the planning, and they trusted the planners. And this has to do, of course, with the high institutional trust we have in Finland. And then we also measured them after we approved the plan, but I don't have any results for you yet. So what we gained was we have now the established connections. They call me, they call planners when they have worries. And we are planning another case study, how to have a coherent MSP with their governance system and so on. But it's a really challenging group. And it requires a lot of face-to-face meetings and validating the data and collecting the local level knowledge and all that kind of stuff. But just as an example. Next slide, please. Patricia, do you have any time left? I have 2 slides left, so maybe
yes, please go ahead, Mari.
Yes, thank you. Just an example. The challenge is to how to gather and value local knowledge. Did we reach locals in a proper manner during our first planning round? I'd say we didn't. No, we didn't. We had a case study where we used the participatory GIS to have local level knowledge of the meaningful places and processes. And with the meaningful places, I mean places like meaningful for locals' leisure time and recreation, emotions, livelihood, and where they found natural and cultural values. And we struggled how to interpret the data. And the most important thing, in addition to the spatial dimensions and temporal dimensions, is that what is needed to maintain it, how to keep those meaningful places and processes alive. So it's kind of conflict mitigation beforehand. And I think there is a need to reach more locals during our next planning round, and this is something we have to do along the whole coastline. Next slide, and the final slide, please. So I was asked beforehand that is our approach transferable to other countries, and then after this long collaboration process, I'd say that why not? You need a lot of resources. We were lucky to have so many planners and GIS experts and PR professionals and all this kind of stuff. So it was possible. And we had a mandate, we had a responsibility to approach the regional and local level stakeholders. And I think it's important to think that who you need to reach. We had this planning principle that whoever the plan affects on, we have to listen them. But then you have this challenge that how you have kind of established ways of using the expert knowledge, but how to value local knowledge. And of course, is there room for negotiation? Because collaboration is actually negotiation. You have to listen, and you have to have room so to kind of reflect on whatever they say and see if it's usable, and if it's not, what is the reason for that? And then I think that the equal treatment of maritime sectors is a basic requirement in conflict mitigation. So you don't have to do the conflict management afterwards. And trust is the key word in all what we do. Thank you. Thank you.